friend, I'm Deborah Larson.
And I'm Katie Shive.
And you're listening to the Redeeming Her podcast, where we aim to create a safe place for honest conversations that will inspire you to discover God's love through your pain. Our goal is to help you reframe your story and find freedom for the future.
So grab a latte and maybe some Kleenex, and let's dive into this week's episode. Well, hey guys, welcome to another episode of Redeeming Her. We are so excited to have you guys joining us this week. Well, I'm really excited to introduce, we have a special guest this week, Carrie Fulton. Hi, welcome to Redeeming Her.
Hello.
Welcome
Thank you
to
for
our
having
show.
me.
Carrie, I'll introduce you. Carrie is a dear friend of mine. Carrie and I both moved to Montana around the same time. I won't steal part of her story. But we arrived right around the same time with a lot of the same reasons of why we came here. Our children are close to the same age. Our husbands have gone hunting together, and we share a lot of commonality. Because I know you, but nobody else does. Tell us just the 30,000 foot view, like, who are you?
Yes, good question. I'm a wife and a mom. Moved to Montana for the same reasons you did, obviously. Busy homeschool mom. We micro homestead. I also work part-time from home. So I basically have no social life, is what I'm telling you. It's a miracle we met. But I love how we became friends because we did move here at the same time, both kind of like, okay, Lord, I trust you. Where's community? And then we just found each other. And so that has been a very special gift for me. But yes, in and out of daily life with babies and computers and chickens and sourdough bread, and we're just making it work and remembering to brush our teeth, so we're good. We're keeping all of them. So that's the 30,000 foot view.
I love that.
Yes.
2 children.
Yes, 2
and you're
kiddos.
homeschooling.
Yeah.
You're 2 girls and you're homeschooling and you're working and you're juggling all the things.
And everybody's
For
alive
all
still.
of our
Yes.
For all of our mamas out there that are listening, you're in good company because Carrie understands really just the juggle, right? Like it's a juggle of trying to find, well, I mean, do you feel like you have balance in your life?
No, not at all. No. And no 2 days look the same. No, it's very much a organized chaos, I'll call it. But yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah.
It's working.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just jump into part of your story? Like what was your childhood like?
I did not grow up in church. Our family was very much, I think we thought we were really good Christians, you know, like we knew the Lord, loved the Lord in our own kind of way, but weren't plugged in anywhere, had no real roots, I would say, in my own journey. So I had a very small little foundation and I knew of the Lord, but I didn't have a relationship, I would say. So my early childhood, you know, it's a bit of I don't know, I grew up, I guess, a loner. I would say I was a very lonely kid. I had a very beautiful older sister who was, I mean, homecoming queen, very popular, like just I lived in her shadow, I would say. And so I just really grew up feeling invisible, I guess is how I would define my childhood, is awkward and invisible. Much the way I feel now as a mom. No, just kidding.
It's the season of having young kids. You just your time in your life is really not so much your own.
You at all. Yeah.
So no.
I've just perpetuated that. But that's what I would say my childhood mostly looked and felt like. Just trying to get through it.
So you had some exposure to Jesus and like faith, but really, just you knew of him more in theory.
Yeah.
When would you say you really met the Lord? Like, what was that part of your journey like?
I can tell you. Yeah, it was on the bathroom floor and it was 3 a.m. And it was my absolute rock bottom moment. I had actually ended up in I was 21 and in a horrible relationship that had pretty much isolated me from my whole family at that point. Just a monster of a person, and had worked up the courage to leave and found out I was pregnant. And I remembered thinking through just being mortified and thinking through, okay, if I keep this baby, if it's a girl, she'll probably be molested. There was no doubt in my mind there. If it's a boy, he'll be the monster that his dad is. And I just remember juggling all of that. And I think in my head, justifying that I was probably protecting my baby by not going through with my pregnancy. I can see in my mind in that moment that that's kind of what I was thinking. And I would have never, ever in my life thought I would be capable of that. Never, ever would have said I was pro-choice, ever. But you find yourself in a crisis moment, and that's when you learn what you're capable of, for better or for worse. It's kind of one of those horrible about-face moments where you realize what you're really capable of. And so I did. I ended my pregnancy and was that night immediately suicidal. That's not something I think many people realize about post-abortive women, is the suicide rate is so high. Not that they go through it necessarily, but the grief is so immediately overwhelming, and the regret is so immediately, it's so present, you just can't get out from under that weight. And the sense of loss was just overwhelming. And I just didn't want to live anymore. I felt like such a monster. I had done the unthinkable. I'd done the thing I thought I would never do, and just could literally feel the loss draining from my body, and I remember sitting on my bathroom floor trying to figure out how I was gonna make that all go away. And then I started to think about my mom, and I thought, oh gosh, like, I don't want her to know what this feels like. I don't want her to, find me in a pool of blood and know what it feels like to go through that. And it was just enough of a pause that I just heard the Lord through that moment. Didn't even know that you could hear the Lord. I mean, I had no reference for that, but I just audibly heard, have you had enough yet? And it's one of those things, I think people hear that and they think, oh, that sounds really mean, but it wasn't. It was just like, have you had, and I remembered thinking, like, I just heard the Lord. I didn't know that was a thing. I had no barometer for that. And I just remember being shocked because I was in my apartment alone. But you hear this, this boom interrupt your absolute horrible moment. And I'm like, I just froze for a minute. And I was like, what just happened? And I'm like, and of all the moments to join me, this is the one you picked, and it's just, it's a hot mess. And I'm in the middle of like trying to end my life, and I just was numb and frozen. And I don't remember the amount of time that passed, but heard it again. Have you had enough yet? And at that point, something snapped. And I think the 21 years of pent up, really just childhood things that I have just stuffed just came spewing out. And I remember just kind of unloading on the Lord and just like, where were you when? And I went through my whole laundry list of, every awful thing that had ever happened to me, and where were you, and why now, and where were you 2 minutes ago, or, at this point, several hours ago. Why didn't you show up right before? Why are you now showing up? And I just had all of this hurt and pain and no way to really process it. And it just came spewing out. And then I panicked. After I said everything I wanted to say, I panicked and I thought, oh no, I just told off the Lord. What if he leaves and doesn't come back? Because I have no barometer for his capacity to love at this point. I really don't, and I'm thinking, oh no, I just told him off. And what am I going to do now? And, and so I just remembered and just still, but I could see now all of that anger had to get out of the way for me to really hear what he was really saying. And I heard it again. Have you had enough yet? But at this point, I knew what he was really asking. And it was, have you had enough of going through life without me? Because it's not what I want for you. Because at 10, I had made the choice, like, this isn't really a thing. Like, it felt great. Whatever happened in that moment that I said yes, like, I don't know where that went. It was a fleeting moment. And so it was really like, oh, you've been waiting for, at this point, 11 years for me to, and so I remember just crying until I could not cry anymore. And I would say that's when I felt, a true sense of purpose, maybe for the first time in my whole life. I had no idea what I was doing, but I felt more seen than I had ever felt in my whole life. I'd spent 21 years knowing very much what it's like to feel invisible. And in my absolute darkest moment, here's, like, you picked this moment. This was the moment, that's where I really met the Lord. And I would say my faith became my own. As messy and as hard as that is to share or to hear, it's real. um, it's my story.
If I may,
Yeah.
it's absolutely so beautiful because
Thank
his
you.
kindness
Yeah.
is always with us. We
Yeah.
just have so much garbage is piled up
Yeah.
that we press through the clutter to
Yeah.
find it. And yet you felt the most valuable and the most seen in the messiest pile you could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that like the
Absolutely.
sweetness? And it's like kisses of the Lord
Yeah.
all over you. And how beautiful that there's no condemnation, there's no
Yeah.
judgment. He's just like, I've been here this whole time.
Yeah.
Now can we
Yeah.
do this together?
Right.
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just love that I mean, I feel like we all in our own story. There's going to be people that aren't going to have your exact story or my story or Deborah's story, but we all have our story. But like you said, there's places of our story that we might feel shame or like, oh, this does not feel fun to share.
Yeah.
This is not the highlight version that you want to package together and
Yeah.
put a bow
It's
on
not
and
my
present
Instagram
to
reel.
people.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but there's
Yeah.
so much there's so much power in it because that really does reflect the heart of the Father, is that He meets us in our absolute, what feels like a pigsty mess,
Yeah.
right? He meets us in when we feel so much shame and so much like, oh, I've got to put myself together before I,
Yeah.
interact with the Lord. And He's like, no, I'm going to meet you in your
Right.
lowest moment. And
Yeah.
I'm going to come with the love of a father that's acceptance, and that, that love is, from what you're sharing, is what awakened your heart
Yeah.
to hear him.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey? Obviously, I mean, I think you're like 28 maybe, so you've only lived a couple years since that
You're
story.
such a
I'm,
good friend.
I'm kidding. It's only been a couple years, but can you share a little bit about your journey? Because obviously the
Yeah.
woman that you are today and, the woman that I know,
Yeah.
that is a part of your story, but that you're not living stuck in that trauma loop and you're not living stuck in that place of pain. So can you talk about what
Yeah.
was that process of walking out that testimony on the other side of your
Yeah.
decision? And how has the Lord helped heal
Yeah.
that part of your story?
Yeah. Great question. I actually, I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. And I went all in. I found a church. I broke my lease. I moved. I changed my phone number. I did all of the things to remove myself from the situation I was in. And I moved to a different town, actually, across the state. And I found a church that had 3 Sunday services, a Saturday night service, a Wednesday night service, and I went to all of them. I just was so desperate to feel clean. I was the hyper attender. They're probably in hindsight, you could probably tell what's wrong with her, but I was at every service I could find. I had been thirsty for 21 years and had finally found water, and so I just couldn't get enough. And so I would listen to the same sermon 5 times a week, just feeling the presence of the Lord, just, this deep, deep void in my life. And I remember going to get a Bible, and I didn't know anything about translations. And I think my first Bible was a King James, and I just could not wrap my head around it. It was painful for me, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so the church I was at it's kind of a larger church, and they have a school as part of their ministry. They have a K through 12 school, and they had an opening for a teacher. And I thought, oh, I will apply for the kindergarten role and I will learn the Bible with the kids. And then I'll be able to read my King James Bible, because I still at this point didn't know anything about translations, or I'm very, very much new, very much trying to hide, not let anybody know where I'd come from, because I knew the Lord had forgiven me, but I was certain Christians couldn't. And so I thought, if I can just hide my story, pretend like I know what I'm doing. I'll be able to learn enough to get close to the Lord. That was my 20-year-old reasoning. So hopefully I've grown from then. But honestly, it worked. I do remember I got a job as an aide to the kindergarten teacher. And so I thought, well, this is great. I will literally learn with the kids. And what I missed out on for 20 years, it'll just be made up. And I was really excited until the first day of work. The teacher handed me the Genesis story in picture form and asked me to put them up in order. And this is before smartphones. And I remember panicking, like, no, they're going to find out I don't belong here. I have no idea. Like, okay, in the beginning, that's here. The seventh day God rested. I knew that. The rest, I was like, I don't know what order it goes in. And I was just in panic mode. And God bless the Lord, sent one of the middle school teachers, just came walking through the hallway, saw the felt board and said, oh, you get to have all the fun. And he grabbed all of them and put them in order for me. And I just remember taking this huge sigh of like, oh, I just got one more day of like life, It's just, but that's how I got to know the Lord, was alongside kindergartners. And then at that same church, they had a deliverance program that I eventually learned about. And funny enough, one of the women who was working the playground yard was just a little Jewish lady, sweet little charismatic Jewish lady. And one day just approached me. And I always thought, oh, she's kind of silly. She was fun, didn't think much about it, but said, I think I'm supposed to mentor you. Will you pray about it? Well, I didn't know what that meant. And I'm thinking, oh, she's going to maybe help me read my Bible or, and that's definitely not what she meant. And so we would meet for prayer, and I'm still trying to hide what I've done and who I am and pretend that this has been my whole life, because I just think they're going to run me out with a pitchfork. And this is the closest I've ever felt to the Lord, and I wanted to protect it. And so I'm trying to pretend like I know exactly what I'm doing. And she would just call me out all the time, and just the way that she could. She'd, well, tell me about this. And I'd be like, how do you even know about that? Like just random things that, nobody on earth could have known. And that's where I really learned how to walk with the Lord, not just learn about him or learn all the stories, but, oh, this is what it looks like to walk with the Lord. And so I signed up for that deliverance class, and they went through, generational stuff in that. And I was so desperate to feel free from it all. It was like an 8-week course. And I remember just tearing through all of the information in a few weeks. I just really wanted to be free. And I had made a long list of things to pray through. And I remember going to a park one day, and I had been fasting, and I just went through it all as best as I knew how. And I had read through the material and just did business with the Lord really on a spiritual level. And so what I'm saying now, I got to that point in a couple of years. That took a couple of years to get to that point. And at the end of this deliverance class, you got to meet with the pastor and another couple prophetic people who kind of helped walk you through what you maybe needed. And I was, at this point, owned my story, and I was very honest on the sheet about what I'd done, what I'd been through. And I thought, well, here's my moment of truth. I knew enough at this point that I thought, if they run me out with pitchforks, like, I know how to have a relationship now with the Lord. And I remember walking in, and they were laughing, and there was so much joy in the room. And at this point, they'd already had my sheet. They'd already seen all of my stuff. And they said, this is going to sound really weird. There's a lot of heavy stuff on here. And they said, but we don't feel any of it. And they said, it feels like it's already been taken care of. And then I started to laugh, and I told them, well, I'd actually already done, I'd already kind of done it on my own. And so what would have been like a really heavy kind of prayer time was just a time of blessing, and they just prayed over me. And it was just a really sweet to just kind of go full circle with the whole thing, and just kind of own my relationship at that point, and know that it was something I could steward. And I didn't need a person or a church, or I didn't need anybody to get me there at that point. I knew enough that he was a friend,
Mm.
So at that point, I think I was 24. So that'd been about a 3-year journey. Yeah.
That's what we call the school of the Spirit.
Yes.
Just I love that there's ministry tools, and I love that there are people that are gifted and help walk people through that. And I love that. But what is so fascinating to me about your story is you literally did a complete 180. Like that is a full turnabout. And when you talk about redemption and we talk about, when you break down what actually forgiveness and
Yeah.
repentance means in the literal term, you walked that out,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and, you just in an instant, the Lord spoke to you
Yeah.
on your bathroom floor and changed the entire trajectory of your life forever
Yeah.
in that one word,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, then it just it really awakened your heart to what has always been longing. It's always been there.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's just been this beautiful and probably somewhat painful journey of just continuing to press into the Lord to unpack those layers. Does
Yeah.
that sound right?
Yeah, no, it does. And I actually, the friend I told you about that had been mentoring me, we'd gotten to the point in our kind of mentoring where, I mean, I thought, okay, well, she knows I had been molested as a kid. She knew, I mean, she had prayed through, and I thought, but I'm still not going to tell her this, what got me there. I'm not going to tell her about 3 a.m. And one day she just called it out. And I remember just like being shocked, like, how on earth could you possibly know that? And then she said, this is just how good God is. She said, why don't you ask him to show you where your baby is? And I had ended my pregnancy so early, I didn't know what I was having. And I said, okay, because I still needed healing. I mean, I had gotten free, but there's a difference between free and healed, and so I said, okay. And she just prayed with me, and I immediately had I'll call it a vision, but it just felt so real. And I was in a meadow, and there's just children everywhere. And in the middle of the meadow, I see Jesus. And I'm watching all of these kids just play with him, and it's just light and glory. I mean, truly just majestic. My eyes just are drawn to this little blonde girl, and I can't stop staring at her. And I'm just captivated by her. And I see Jesus grab her hand and walk her towards me. And I start to realize, like, oh, she's mine. And I'm suddenly, this sounds so silly, but oh, how do I look? I'm about to meet my baby. Do I look okay? What am I wearing? Like, I'm suddenly very nervous. I want her to like me, which sounds just ridiculous. And they get towards me, and I just am crying and telling her how sorry I am. And I'm just asking her to forgive me. It was just one of those beautiful moments. I got to give her a hug, and I remembered I could feel that, like, that was kind of ending, and they were starting to walk back. And I remember asking, Lord, wait, what did you name her? And he said, Abigail. And I went and looked it up, and it means my father's joy. And I just remember, like, just the closure of, okay, like, she's not on my shower floor still, or, I mean, she really is with the Lord. And just that kind of full healing, redemptive moment of, I have a girl, and her name is Abigail, and she's in heaven, and one day we're going to be together, And so that was really, I would say, the best gift ever, and it felt like a reward for doing all of that really hard, awful drudgery of deliverance, because deliverance isn't pretty or fun or clean. It's very messy, and it's a lot of work, and it just felt like a beautiful gift at the end of all of that. And so I was so glad the Lord, divulged all my secrets in hindsight and just blew my cover completely, because what a beautiful gift, And so I have 2 little girls, and I've thought through, how am I going to tell them this someday, because it's part of my story. And so they don't know exactly how yet, but they do know they have a sister in heaven named Abigail, and that one day they're going to get to meet her, and, and so it's in as much as can be done. I think the Lord has just redeemed that part of my journey. And
Didn't your daughter have a dream?
she did, actually. She was a twin. I have 2 babies in heaven. She was a twin, and we lost that we lost one baby in utero before we knew what it was. And so I didn't miscarry Harper. I just miscarried the twin. And we had actually, before we were ever going to have children, we knew what our names would be. We were like, we're going to have a Harper or a Jack. We just loved those names. And so we just knew before ever trying to get pregnant, those were our names. And so we lost one baby, but held Harper full term. And when she was 3.5, and we didn't know what we'd lost, but when she was 3.5, she said, Mom, I want a brother. And at that point, I was pregnant again. And I said, well, you might have one. We didn't know yet what Maggie would be. And she said, yeah, I've met him. She said, I saw him last night. His name is Jack, and he looks just like me. And so that was another really sweet way of like, okay, the Lord has brought closure for 2 losses for me. I have an Abigail and a Jack in heaven. And she had never heard that name. She doesn't know what a twin was. She was 3.5, and so that was just like, I don't know if she dreamt it. I don't know how that happened for her, but yeah, I have a brother and his name is Jack and he looks just like me. And, and I was like, I remember looking at Graham like, you heard that, right? Like you heard it too, right? Like, and we were both just like, it was, yeah, just a beautiful, God is so good. He's so good especially when you're willing to just lean in with your messy, but even when you're not, as my first example would show, just ready to be done. He's just so good.
Yeah. So what would you say has been your greatest reward of pressing in and doing the work? Because I think, we all go through these moments of we have, pain or disappointment or loss or just life, right? And I think even if you look outside of the context of heavy stuff, but it's just the day-to-day juggle of, you're a working mom, you're doing a lot of things. It's not like, I know you, it's not like you're spending hours on the floor soaking and just, whatever. Like a lot of times it's like you're in the shower on the go, like catching Holy Spirit where you can. But what has been the reward for you personally of being very intentional with pressing in as he leads you to go to those places and to seek freedom and to seek healing and redemption?
Yeah, I think one of the first scriptures I ever learned was in Isaiah when he talks about the Lord giving beauty for ashes. And so I remember thinking, okay, like I have a lot of ashes. What does it look like to turn this into beauty? And I remember in 2019, the Lord prompting me to quit my job. And I didn't have another plan B, but I wanted to obey. And so I quit my job, and my husband and I are both waiting for me to get another job, but we don't know what the other job is yet. And, just kind of one of those leap of faith things. And quickly realized the Lord was asking me to write a book, which I'd never done before. And so it's one of those crazy things, but ended up winning like a publishing package so I could publish it. And the Lord just worked that out. But within that book, I shared my story, and my church at the time shared it. And a woman came up to me a few months after it had been released, crying, and said, I read your book. I have lived with the same secret for decades, and just thanked me for the freedom she felt in just not being alone. I think it can be really easy to feel alone and maybe like an imposter as a post-abortive woman in a church, because that is the one thing you can be a recovering pornographer, you can be anything but a post-abortive. I feel like the church is very much learning how to navigate that still. And so she had just been living with this horrible, awful secret and just felt the freedom to like own her story. And I thought, gosh, I think sometimes you do something for one, sometimes you do it for 10. You never really know. But if I hadn't, walked through all of that and done all of that hard work and found freedom, I would have never touched this woman. I would have never met her, and so being willing to be seen and to just own your journey and then watching what the Lord can do with it has been a beautiful reward. I would obviously love to see women never make the choice I made, but it's just part of our society right now. I had a dream, gosh, I guess it was when I was writing the book, but I had a dream that I was at a campground and there was this woman crying out in agony, and this grizzly bear was eating her womb. And I knew it had to do with abortion. And I suddenly realized I'm on the phone and I'm like, I'm talking to heaven. And I'm like, I need to help this woman. What do you want me to tell her? And I hear the Lord say, tell her I love her. And so I thought it was, I remember waking up and just being dumbfounded. Like, no, you want me to tell her to repent? Don't you want me to tell her not to do that? And it's like, I think somehow we've got to figure out how to navigate that conversation. I definitely don't have the answers, but I know it's easy to sit in a church and just feel total shame. And the Lord is saying, tell her I love her. Like, I see her, I saw you, I still love her. I have the baby now. So now, like, for the Lord, it's, my heart is after her. I have the child now. Let's get her. And so that has been part of the challenge I feel like I've been trying to navigate or address or find language for. But the reward has absolutely been seeing other women find freedom, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. Well, for those of you that are listening, we'll make sure to link the show notes so you can go check out Carrie's book if that resonates with you. It is a beautiful book and a beautiful part of your story. If you had a woman standing in front of you that has made that same choice, what is some hope or something that you would share as somebody who has walked through that and experienced the freedom on the other side?
Yeah, I think that knowing where your baby is, that was huge for me. I would encourage every woman to ask the Lord that question that has lost, whether it's because you had an abortion or a miscarriage or however that happened for you, to see where they're at now and that there really is no pain and there really is nothing but joy. Is very freeing. And so I would absolutely talk about that for sure. And I think, I was just thinking this morning actually about Nehemiah and how he rebuilt the temple and the walls with burnt stones, and that it's just really never too late to start or to try again. And yeah, burnt stones aren't the prettiest on the outside, but they have been tested by fire. And so you can count on a burnt stone. Any burnt stone that has the courage to rally faith and be used again is a stone you can rely on. It's been tested. And so I was thinking about that this morning, that just in a lot of ways, I maybe feel like a burnt stone. It's not so pretty. It's really messy, but I want to be somebody the Lord can count on, and I want to be used. And so I think being willing to be seen is part of that. And you can't stay hidden in your sadness. You can't stay hidden in your mess. It really will suffocate you. And so you have to be willing to find the light and be seen. And that's just part of it. But it's something you have to be ready for that moment. You have to be, it's a process. And I've always been a hyperactive processor. And so I get to places really quickly. And then, but that's not everybody's speed. But there's grace. Most Christians actually won't chase you with the pitchfork, so it'll be okay. But yeah, there's always hope.
That's so beautiful.
When you were talking, the Lord reminded me that what we fear is judgment and the judgment of people. And he said, please let them know that I judge unto life.
Yeah.
I don't judge unto death. And so he's looking for the blood of the Lamb that brings the redemption. And then it's literally obliterated in his book.
Yeah.
We just have to recognize that his judgment is never for condemnation.
Yeah.
His judgment is to birth life.
Yeah.
And that gives a whole different perspective for both believers, for some of us that are believers, and perhaps we've actually done that in our hearts, but we didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But the judgment is to find life. Like you said, he has our kids.
Yeah.
But he wants to make sure that your heart is whole and that he refines that. I had just heard this song the other day. It's an old song. It was called The Refiner's Fire. It's the beauty of the burnt stone, because the refinement is to purify it so that the glory can be shown.
Yeah.
And that's what you've done today for us and for our listeners. And I just want to thank you for just being so vulnerable and so transparent, because this is how he burns this into others. But the flames aren't hot. They're just purifying. And I think if we could change our language, we would have a different perspective and we would run into him, because it's always unto life. And he only leads by love.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the story.
That's so good. That's so good.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It means a lot to me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
What's the name of your book?
Yeah, it's Freedom Fighter is what I named it. Contemplating rewriting it in fictional format. We'll see.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll fit it in with the sourdough and the chicken. So
I understand that.
Yeah.
Not the chickens, although I'd love to have them in the backyard.
Yeah.
Very cool. We will put all of the ways to connect with you. You are back on social media a little bit. You're putting your toe in the water.
Yes.
So if those of you want to connect with Carrie, we will put that information as well.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
And we will be back for next week. We have some more guests coming up that are going to be awesome. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe and go follow us on YouTube. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in with us. We pray that you're encouraged and find the truth that will set you free on your journey.
To learn more about Redeeming Her ministry or how to partner with us, please check the show notes for links or visit RedeemingHer.com. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode.